The original Ghost in the Shell is a seminal work... Phrasing. A seminal work of at least two major 20th century genres, one of the most fully realized narratives in the entire cyberpunk movement, and one of a handful of go-to anime classics where one doesn't actually feel obligated to place air quotes around the word classic when describing it outside the tempura-crusted Shibuya tentacle dungeon that is contemporary otaku fandom. But the problem with being seminal, Phrasing! The problem with being seminal, though, is that you become so influential that by the time your own adaptation rolls around, regardless of whether or not you demanded one, everything worth adapting will have already been picked over. And sure enough, everyone from Hong Kong to Hollywood to every other dystopian future anime made sense has spent the last 22 years sucking Ghost in the Shell's cybernetic bones clean, recycling bits and pieces of it into everything from The Matrix to AI to Ex Machina to the Resident Evil movies, and that's just the obvious ones. Hell, thinking on it, you could probably draw a bunch of lines from this straight to fucking Zootopia. As a result, it doesn't really feel like there is anything left to do with Ghost in the Shell other than drop the fig leaf of homage and just translate all its best remembered visuals into live action draped over the skeleton of a mostly generic superhero origin story, because at this point, even the plot of the original Ghost in the Shell has been stolen from too much to feel fresh on its own. Not that they've necessarily replaced it with anything better. So while the new movie plays out in a mostly faithful live action rendering of the 90s style futuristic Eastern metropolis from the original and recreates big moments like the geishas, the spider tank, the night swimming, the keyboard fingers, and some of the shootouts and chases, the storyline is different and a lot less complicated. Scarlett Johansson's incarnation of the Major is the brain of an orphaned war refugee killed by terrorists and planted into the body of a robot hoping to regain her supposedly lost memories. No prizes for guessing that she's been lied to about her past, that the cyborg serial killer she's chasing has a connection to said past, and that the secretive robotics corporation involved in their mutual creation turns out to be the real villains of the piece vis-a-vis a weak sauce conspiracy mystery that you're gonna figure out moments after they begin setting it up. And without a story worth following, it's up to the visuals to do the job. And while they're all very pretty and expensive looking, original, this film is not. You've seen every tableau Ghost in the Shell has to offer in a dozen better movies, not just the original Ghost in the Shell, and the action sequences are rote and predictable in the extreme. I can't think of one genuinely noteworthy sequence, scene, or individual shot worth devoting any real consideration to beyond the obligatory confirmation that yes, now that you mention it, taking one of the 5 or 6 hottest actresses on the planet and having her jump around and whoop ass in a latex body stocking isn't exactly the worst thing I've had to look at all year. Speaking of which, Scarlett Johansson is fine. She's just fine. There's not really anything there for her to work with character-wise, but she commits to it and, well, yeah, surprising absolutely nobody, an actress best known for looking too good to have been designed by nature and speaking with a detached affect, gives great robot. As to the attendant inescapable controversy vis-a-vis whitewashing, yeah, it is in fact some Hollywood bullshit that what should have been an easily gift-wrapped opportunity for representation or a spotlight for a Japanese actress who otherwise would never get cast in this sort of movie these days goes to Scarlett Johansson instead. But honestly, the narrative is so pointless, the role is so thin, and the movie is such a drab fucking waste of time, I'd almost be inclined to joke that she did the Japanese acting community a favor by taking this dud off their hands. Until the big main plot twist makes the issue unavoidable in a staggeringly tone-deaf way that is actually kind of a spoiler, so see you after the star rating. The rest of the cast doesn't really register at all outside of maybe Takeshi Kitano, and that's really only because his role is, hey look, it's Takeshi Kitano. P.U. Asbeck has a big outsized personality as Bateau, but he doesn't really have a character to pour it into, and everyone else feels like their roles have been edited down to nothingness, with the big Act 3 wrap-up demonstrating that at one point this might have been meant to be a police team-up movie and more of an ensemble than a one-woman show. But hey, you know, there's a basset hound at one point, that's kinda nice. As I've often observed with other bad movies like this, Ghost in the Shell might have been better if it was worse. Some amusingly chintzy effects, bafflingly incompetent direction, or hammy over-the-top acting would have at least brought some novelty to the table. Sadly, this is the kind of polished turd that's exactly proficient enough to be utterly unmemorable. It's not a disaster, but there's not a goddamn thing to recommend here. 2 stars. If not for all the controversy, we probably wouldn't be talking about this a week from now. So, she's actually Japanese. Yeah, that's the big crux of the twist to the Major's new origin story. Her name actually is Makoto Kusanagi. The evil corporation guys were abducting street kids and taking out their brains so they could build Robocops, and they stuck hers in a robot body that looks like Scarlett Johansson, literally pasting white skin over a Japanese identity. Holy shit. And the movie does not seem to realize the implications of this. Like, it's not meta or self-satire or the film trying to make a point about itself. It's just just a tone-deaf plot turn that makes you amazed no one in the production thought about how it was going to play. What a shit show.